Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. Excited to be here. I think this context is set in terms of managing expectations thanks to the previous talk, although this will be in a different context, and I will try to connect that. While I go into this, this is something where I've learned quite a bit as a manager. I want you all to go back in time. I want to take you back in time to 2018 and 19 is where most of the context that I'm going to use for this talk. Datadog was still a startup, and we were operating in one region, roughly 500 workloads, 250 engineers shipping code. We made a bold decision to just say that, OK, let's go and build an entirely new region. Let's build an entirely new Datadog. And this time, do something crazy, use something like Kubernetes, which we took it as a big bet, saying this will be the future, this will be the substrate for the future of infrastructure. We didn't take an incremental or an experimental approach. We just dived in. So what did we, or how did we achieve that? We started with the Tiger team. I was not there. We just asked a group of people, motivated people, to go and make this happen. Their sole purpose was to make it successful. That became an infrastructure team at Datadog eventually. So that's the team I joined, and that's the state I have joined. So what I was asked is, OK, now we have this. We have validated this. Make this work across all regions that we were running in AWS before that, and also make this the future or the foundation for everything that is going to come. And that is a goalpost that could constantly move. We didn't know what it was. It was very exciting and also terrifying for me of the unknown. But it was a great challenge. So how I'm going to set the context is first explain you what was the evolving scope of this is, and how it evolved from what we thought was going to be a momentum builder of, OK, we've built this new region. We will have the time to understand and standardize of what we have, and then we will build one region at a time. Well, it didn't happen like that in reality. So in 2020, we went public in 2019. So in 2020, naturally, some market pressures made us think about, OK, so you have to launch 2 new regions. And there were some deadlines associated with it. And very quickly, what we thought about the tight deadlines that we were thinking of, building momentum towards reaching there wasn't possible. A few things happened in 2020. I think I already teased you all what that is. In 2020, when COVID-19 hit, our trajectory for Datadog has completely changed. It changed for me and as well as the company in 2 ways. One, what we were trying to do, get everyone to understand how you build and ship software at Datadog with building relationships within the company, suddenly became the communication and coordination completely remote. Well, we were a global company, so that wasn't much of a difficulty adapting to, so we were able to fairly adjust. But what the unexpected that was more interesting for us is the demand for digital services has suddenly surged because every digital business became in demand, and Datadog was somehow in the front and center of it. And we started to see 80% year-over growth in 21 and 22. So by mid-22, our whole engineering just ballooned into 1,200 plus engineers, 250 plus teams, several workloads, multiple regions, and making several thousand changes into the infrastructure. If someone told me that when I was joining in 2019 that would happen, I wouldn't have believed it. And preparing for that was hard. So along this way, a lot of disconnect, a lot of distance, a lot of emotions, a lot of chaos has happened. And that gave many opportunities for, as a leader or as a manager, One, I would say learning opportunities, but also mistakes, and which allowed me to build a foundation for the future. So one important aspect that I want to share about the disconnect is, because we were growing and scaling as an organization, we started dividing the responsibilities of who would be working on customer-facing products and who would be building the foundational or the shared components. And that's what the difference I would want to use as a context for moving forward and for the slides. The product teams and the platform teams. So I'm going to focus more on the platform teams, the side of it, and most of the emotions or I would say the collaboration or discussions were between these teams. So what were some of those disconnect, or I would translate to motivations, again, translate to expectations. The first one, I would like to think about divided opinions. The very first thing is the aspect of, why do we even need to do this? Again, imagine, at the time, I didn't believe that we will be growing so much. Imagine for some of them thinking or believing in shipping what's right for the customer, asking them to go and change the substrate of the underlying infrastructure and go spend time on it. They would naturally think of, why are we even doing this? Explain to me why this is necessary. Then the skepticism, for those who have seen that this is a necessary aspect of business, then there is a different kind of skepticism. But how do you know what we would need to ship in time? And it was a rational question, and most of the time the responsibility lies on those who are trying to help them. And we were trying to understand and listen to some of those. There is a second set of expectations of those who was already bought in, who has already seen the need to make the change. How they work with you, they come with an expectation that, well, we know what needs to be done. This is how it is. Go make this happen exactly like that. Imagine doing that if you were building this platform for, you could do that for 1, 2, 3 teams, but if you were trying to do that for 50 and 60, you can't scale. So that was difficult for us to have a vision for what it might look like for everyone. And the last one, of those who don't feel heard, they would start to think, well, this is probably good for us to do it on our own, or we could do this better ourselves. Most of the time, they're right. And they know their practices well, they know their systems well, they know their requirements well. And again, we felt it was rational to have that kind of an expectation. All this is hindsight, by the way, not at that moment. At that moment, the thought was completely different. So what it became was, during this journey, it was managing the intersection of those demands and the complex dynamics of how the human behavior evolved in 3 primary aspects: about trust, about their motivations, and about what ownership meant for everyone involved in this story. And imagine that most of this in 2020, it was done over a digital medium or over a screen or over a text medium, over Slack. It compounded the learnings, or it increased the divide and disconnect. So I'll be sharing some of those lessons. So let's dive in. Like I was describing, early on, there was a lot of excitement where we had a very good success. Datadog had a very good exit. And we had thought about what the future is going to look like. And we have started doing exciting high-scale, solving exciting high-scale problems. And many of the core businesses that we had at the time were truly excited of launching on new regions with a common substrate. There was a lot of initial trust built with those teams who did not really want this problem to be solved by them. They really wanted someone else to do it. They were really glad that there was an infrastructure team forming at Datadog so they could focus on solving customer problems. So we started working with them, and we made them successful. They also helped validate technically the system that we would like to envision for the future. And I have come in with some experience thinking about this at at a large scale, at a mission-critical scale. And it was also interesting for me to see how my learnings applied, and I was excited too, and my team was excited too. And we thought, this positive feedback and this momentum, we were on the right track. This is great. I made the best decision in my life. I still believe that, though. So what was the assumption? So that confidence and that excitement rushed, personally me, and also that translated to my team. At the time, we were a very small team. We were like 6 to 8 people. Success with a few teams, that's it. We have cracked it. So now we can extrapolate it. We can make everyone do what we thought we made successful this first team. I think the differences aren't that hard, where we had a little bit of arrogance that we knew about all of Datadog, all 3 businesses at the time. So we pushed forward aggressively. And we thought the hard part of winning hearts and minds is behind us. So the reality was, we didn't realize, we were not paying attention to some subtle cues of the fragmented trust across teams. Many remained skeptical, but we were just, talking to ourselves in our heads, saying, yes, this is something that we know have cracked, but it was not true. And it was also difficult. This is right around the time when the world order was changing. Even though we have had the memory of the excitement, when things were drifting completely to digital, we never tried to revalidate how that is changing. And we carried forward with what we had, and we were not paying attention to some aspects or many aspects of how fragile that trust was. And it started to test. It started to test in ways where when we started rolling out the platform to more teams and more businesses within Datadog, even when it started touching their day-to-day lives, and when even minor disappointments that were coming along with it, people started to look at them in microscope, and that compounded how some of those skeptics who viewed us as trying to disrupt their lives, or day-to-day lives. And this also coincided with the order in which the global pandemic affected individuals at the time. So this difficulty of navigating the fragile trust kind of defined the success of the entire initiative at the time. Still, as I said, the goalpost was moving. We didn't know what done looked like. So like someone said, I couldn't find the author, but I like the quote. Trust takes forever to build, seconds to break, and forever to repair. We found somehow our moment where we completely broke this. So this is when one of the 2 regions that I said we're going to build in 2020 was Gulf Cloud, and it was with tight deadlines. We just somehow imagined that this is an opportunity, a forcing function, where we can get everyone to use our platform. We can say this is done. After this, it is going to be the new system, or it is going to be the new deployment system everywhere. And we didn't try it or went and checked, because we thought it is a low volume, low risk, low customer environment, and what could go wrong, right? And it should be seen as a win-win for even the teams that want to go, because it's a direction we have set already, and they should see this as a positive change. That was our assumption, and that was our opportunity, but the reality was we underestimated what the team's expectation of consistency across regions meant. We were thinking that having this as a new system, they will try, and then they will take the time to go over and get their practices rationalized across what they are doing today. But many of them said, no, we didn't want to do a special deployment process in one region. What we wanted was everything to be consistent. Many of them said that. And then now we have a deadline, so now we can't move forward without getting them to do it. So we were trying to look for a compromise where we said, okay, we will make it work in the existing region that you have. Again, overconfidence. We just thought we solved all the technical problems. So we started pushing people towards it. So there were 2 batches of people. We got forked. One, things worked, and they were happy. They never came back. Things that didn't work, they had more skepticism. They completely lost trust. OK, this platform is not going to work. For those who that never worked at all, and they were forced to go and make this region happen anyways, they remain unhappy for the rest of the period. So this rollout completely eroded the trust. And simply put, the failure was we failed to manage their expectations of how they wanted the rollout to happen. We tried to control the pace. We tried to control the solution. We tried to control what they should be trying to do, even though they were on the front lines solving customer problems. In hindsight, that was the moment where we lost, and this was also the lowest point during this transition. What that compounded, once we have lost the trust, we still had to move forward. We had one more region to build. And many of them, they suddenly started to seeing, should we be even doing this? Because many of these workloads weren't working. So we are not going to move forward with this. And a stalemate developed where we really needed people to try to use the platform on our biggest scale or the main region, the region that we first started with. And they would refuse. They would wait for us, or they would force us to prove that this actually works. This increased the resistance and hostility everywhere. So as a way of us moving forward, we decided we will work with those who will work with us. And these were low volume, low critical use cases. We went ahead and doing them. That further increased the divide that made some of these critical workloads feel like we are not even hearing them. We are not even trying to work with them. So that became even difficult to move forward. So this was the moment where it was an inflection point, a juncture where I had to think of how do I bring this back? How do I make this successful? And it was difficult for me to think. I knew all the signals I've been receiving until that point. I knew what the course of action is. I felt like if I really try to get them to own, they might start thinking that this is a path they might explore. But part of me was unwilling, like if I do this, am I failing? Is it that now I would not get credit for this? Or am I failing my team because of this? But then once I detached myself from it, it's like, is it that really that I want this to make this happen, or I want this to happen? I want this platform to be successful. So that was like a realization moment. And then when I saw that, I started thinking of starting with questions like, OK, if you were to do it, if these problems were something like, if we were to build on our platform, what would you do? Then I was surprised by the reception of many of those teams. They really liked having or being in control. Some of them even wanted to prove us wrong, which was OK. That was a good motivation for them to see, like, can we push the platform forward? So this started switching momentum. Some teams used our foundations. They adapted our components that we have built for. Some of those really worked. So primarily three major areas within the company. The database team have built a very cool cadenced rollout system that could roll out a large database fleet almost with no touch. The web team found a way to keep the web always up while making changes continuously. And all these were like cool innovation that came from them. And it was really inspiring for not just for them, but for my team as well as everyone else around the company. Some teams struggled with the complexity. They tried to prove us wrong, and they were humbled, and they returned back for collaboration. They also saw some of the other things being successful. Since they've seen the taste of the difficulty of making something work for more than one size, they all came back. We reintegrated the solutions into the common platform. And this was a pivotal moment that changed, even though we didn't achieve everything, the whole convergence of the entire platform into one. This gave us a new, renewed momentum at this particular juncture. They became advocates. They started creating a network effect across the organization that started to rebuild some trust and some renewed collaboration, some renewed energy within my team, as well as some of those who were dependent on this from a business perspective. What was more important, I realized at the time, was I was comparing that feeling from the initial excitement. Although we had this dip, the lowest point, and then went back, started going back, the scars were never healed. Yes, they started trusting us, but it remained moderate over a period of time because we broke trust so spectacularly that it was hard to rebuild. It really required a lot more longevity, in hindsight again, for them to truly trust. So what did we all learn in summary from this is technical challenges can be anticipated. We have really solved them very early in our endeavor. We talked about a lot of this in 2020 and 2021. We were able to anticipate some of those based on experience. I was able to anticipate based on experience that I had. But what was really difficult for me to anticipate was the human reactions of under varying circumstances and different geographies. And that became so unpredictable, and that became the wild card in the success of this project. And what also fascinated me is people have habits. I have habits. I've never thought about thinking about them from a different self, and the fears that come out of when you change them, and the motivations, the length they can go when they want to protect them from not happening. So this also shaped the success of the project overall. Misaligned expectations and trust issues, that became the main aspect of how even the best laid plans, we had thought about what we could do in the next 2 to 3 years, what this foundation is going to look like, made it difficult to anticipate. Engaging with teams at a personal level, finally, was the primary differentiation for making this successful collaboratively across the company. And the most important aspect of that is making them feel heard, listening to what they were trying to say, and be willing to have them the control or ownership, a sense of ownership, and have a relentless desire to not control and let them drive. So to recap, the framework, I don't truly believe in frameworks because I don't think everything fits exactly like this in every situation. But if I were to go back in hindsight, it is easy to do it. What were the steps? If you were to follow, if you're doing this, starting a new project, which involves others to use your stuff, it can apply to even customer facing. Start small, show early wins, build a support network, let them talk about your wins, not yourself. Maintain the trust. Don't think that this is a side task or a one-time aspect that you will just do it and then done, and then after that you just expect. Address resistance with kindness. Don't address it with entitlement. It is not that you don't have a monopoly over what you are building. You have to almost assume. Even if you were given by the CTO or the CEO a directive, you do not have a monopoly of what you think you are giving to the company. So you always are expected to respond in kindness, and that will help. Empowering them for ownership, and most importantly, no matter what happens, be relentless in finishing. So don't complain about, okay, if you're not able to do it. Even if you've reached the lowest point, detach yourself from it. Think what's best for the project, not you, or sometimes not even your own team members. How would their promotion affect? How would their career affect? In the end, it will be positive if the project's successful. So you need to start thinking about that rather than the inverse. So these lessons really helped me. I've built 5 new infrastructure platforms after this period. Each time I made fewer mistakes. I made mistakes still, like it's hard. And some of the mistakes I've made in the project that I described, I didn't even realize until I was making them the 3rd time. And right now, even I was not confident about, many people have asked me to talk about this. I was not confident about talking about this because I didn't know what I was trying to fix all this along would even work. Like after 6 times, I think now I feel confident that yes, this can work. Again, circumstances and situations. If you want to talk more about if you have a situation that is similar, scaled back, scaled up, it would be really interesting to test and talk and learn. So talk to me after this, and that's all I have.